Computer-delivered IELTS, brought to you by Knowledge Island by Bilal.
In this test, you will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your answers. The recording will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. Now turn to Section 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between the accommodation officer at a university and a student. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 3. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 3.
Good morning. National University Accommodation Office. Rosemary speaking. How can I help you?
Hi. I'm coming to do a short course at the university this summer, and I'd like to book some accommodation, please.
OK. Have you seen the online booking form on our website?
Oh, no. Sorry, I didn't realise.
Don't worry. I can fill it in for you now if you like. Then I can email it to you so you can check it and submit it online. Will that be OK?
Oh, yes. Thanks.
OK. First of all, what's your surname?
Blake. That's B-L-A-K-E.
OK. And your first name?
Daniel.
Is that D-A-N-I-E-L?
Yes, that's right.
Thank you. And have you studied with us before?
Yes, I have.
Great. Then you'll have an ID document with a number. Have you got that to hand?
Yes. Here we are. The number is 410623.
Thank you. And I'm putting male for gender.
That's correct.
Could I take an email address, please?
Sure. It's d.blake@internet.com, all lowercase.
OK. So that's d.blake@internet.com.
That's correct.
And do you have a phone number where you can be reached if there's a problem?
Yes, that's 0779 435 354.
453354?
No, 435 354.
OK, I've got it.
Before you listen to the rest of the conversation, you have some time to read questions 4 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 4 to 10.
So, you said you're going to be studying with us in the summer. What course are you doing?
I've enrolled to do art history.
And which start date have you selected? The 1st of July?
No, the later one.
The 4th of August?
That's it.
And what type of accommodation would you like to book? Was it full board, half board, bed and breakfast, or self-catering?
Self-catering, please.
OK. And did you want a single room or a shared room?
Oh, I hadn't thought about that, really. Is there a difference in price?
Yes. The shared room is much cheaper, but I can't guarantee who you'd be sharing with at this stage.
I see. No, I don't want to share. Let's say single. I can see the prices here in the prospectus. It's not too expensive.
Good. And you'll see you can also pay extra for a private bathroom if you want.
Ah, yes. That sounds like a good idea.
So shall I put private? You can always change it before you send the form in if you have second thoughts.
Yes. Okay, let's do that.
And finally, Daniel, will you need a parking place?
Oh, yes, please.
I need to put here the type of vehicle, just whether it's a bicycle, a motorbike, or a car, you know.
Yes, it's for a car.
OK, well, that's all. I'll email you this now and you can check it and send it in with your deposit.
Thanks.
Did you want to pay £50 or £100 as your initial deposit?
Oh, 100, please.
Thank you. A credit card payment will be prompted when you submit the form.
Okay.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
No, that's all. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Goodbye.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2. You will hear a restaurant manager giving a briefing to new staff. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen and answer questions 11 to 16.
OK, so it's really good that the three of you are starting today. I can give you this briefing all together and save time. Basically, you're all going to be waiting at table, moving between the kitchen, the dining room and the bar, taking the customers' orders and bringing them their food and drinks. Most things are fairly obvious, but sometimes when it gets busy, you have to find things in a hurry and there's nobody to ask. So I'm going to show you where 1 or 2 key items are kept. First, cutlery. Knives, forks, spoons, that kind of thing. As soon as each table is vacated, when the diners get up to leave, you should come and clear the table and relay it. The clean stuff is kept just inside the kitchen, OK? The same place where the chef leaves the plates of food that are ready to be served. Remember, waiters aren't allowed to enter the food preparation area itself, so you needn't go any further into the kitchen than that. But before you can lay the table, you'll need to put on fresh table linen. Obviously the napkins, but also the cloth, even if it looks clean, will need changing. Clean table linen is kept in a cupboard here below the till, where we deal with the customer's payments, so you may have to be patient if somebody's waiting for a credit card authorization or something. Now, customers are given menus when they first enter the restaurant to look at while they're waiting at the bar to be shown to their table. All you have to do is collect these up after you've taken the order and return them to the stand by the front door. There are always spares there if you need one. There are real flowers on each table. These don't usually get changed between customers, but if people want to take them, they can. Or sometimes they get damaged. Anyway, if you need new ones, you can find them in a bucket of water beside the door that leads into the yard behind the restaurant. And finally, if there's a spill or a glass gets knocked over or you need something to clean up the mess, there's a supply of disposable towels next to the barman's sink. That's something you're sure to be needing sooner or later. And if anyone actually gets injured, there is always a first aider on duty. There's a duty list on the wall in my office, and there's a red box on the wall by the door into the restroom which you share with the kitchen staff. That's got all the necessary stuff in, you know, bandages, plasters and so on. So, has anyone got any questions so far?
Before you hear the rest of the talk, You have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
And now, just a word about complaints. Ideally, we don't get any, but sometimes things can go wrong, and sometimes you also get difficult customers. Anyway, as the waiter, you will often be the person who gets to hear the complaint first. It's important not to respond, however, but to refer the complaint to the responsible person who will deal with it. As manager, I like to hear about all complaints, but I don't need to be directly involved in minor ones. If, for example, customers complain when they first enter the restaurant, perhaps they don't like their table or they're kept waiting too long, then there's no need to call me. This is something the head waiter will deal with. When it comes to the food itself, however, particular dishes that people don't like or whatever, there's a need to be cautious. The head chef is quite a strong character who doesn't like to be criticised. So, although in the end he will be responsible for dealing with complaints about the food, please don't approach him directly. Always go through the head waiter. Now, when it comes to complaints about the whole meal, whether it's the food or the service in general, then I do want to know. The head chef and the head waiter will be involved in sorting out the problem, but I want to speak to the customers myself and find out what's gone wrong and offer them a free meal or a discount. Finally, if the customer has already paid and then complains about anything, then this is something only the manager can sort out because it could be a refund, perhaps on a credit card, and this will need authorisation. I'm generally in my office if I'm not actually in the dining room, so don't hesitate to call me. So, if there are no further questions...
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3.
Before we continue, please subscribe our channel and press the bell icon for all the latest updates.
You will hear 2 students talking about a research project they have to do together. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24. Now listen and answer questions 21 to 24.
Hi, Mark.
Kirsty, hi. So, we've got this research project to organise. I really like the idea of doing it on the allotment gardens opposite the college. Brilliant idea of yours.
Oh, not really. I walk past there every day and see people working on little plots of land, growing their own food, and I thought it'd be interesting to find out more about it.
Great. So, we'd better decide who's doing what in terms of gathering some background data.
Right. I thought we ought to do 2 things. Do some background reading, then actually go and interview some of the people involved.
Sure. I guess we could start by looking into why the allotment gardens are there, whose idea it was, when they were established, etc., looking at historical records.
Well, I've already discovered that it was a national programme in the 1920s, so our local one would have been a part of that. I guess we could look at local records to see why this particular site was chosen.
OK, I'll do that then. I guess it was wasteland or something. There's quite interesting geology and soils round here, actually.
Oh, I don't think we need to go into all that.
Oh, okay.
But what you could do is find out what the terms and conditions are for the gardeners. Do they pay rent? Do they have a contract, etc.?
Well, I think you can ask them that. We don't need to research it ourselves.
Yes, you're right. But I did read a newspaper report that said the site was under threat of development. You know, somebody wants to build housing there.
Really? Now that is interesting. I could look to see whether anyone's applied for permission to the local council's planning office.
Exactly.
Then I guess we need to ask somebody if it's okay before we go over there and start talking to people.
Yes. The land belongs to the city council and somebody there manages it. I'll give them a call.
Great. He should be able to give you a plan of the site too.
Yes. And maybe some indication of who amongst the gardeners it might be best to approach, like who's been there the longest or whatever.
Yeah, okay. It might be good to have an introduction rather than just approaching them out of the blue, actually.
I agree. Then I thought I ought to check out any other research there's been on the subject.
Yes, that's true. We don't want to do stuff that's already been done.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 25 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 25 to 30.
Have you got any idea what we should actually focus on in our research?
Well, I think it's a choice between a survey about use, how many people use the land, how often they go, how productive it is, or something more attitudinal, like what motivates people to do it, what they get out of it, what difference it makes to their lives.
Yes, I like that. Let's go with that. But what about issues, disputes between the gardeners, difficulties they have with the management, things like that?
Well, I don't think we can make that our aim. There may not be any problems.
Yes, you're right. Let's stick to the attitudinal focus then.
OK.
I think the next stage is to do some preliminary work. Find out if we can get permission, see if anyone will talk to us, whether there are any specific issues we could focus on.
Well, shouldn't we consult our tutor before doing all that? Get the go-ahead for the topic in principle?
Well, she said specifically not to do that. To go to her once we had a definite proposal, with the details in place.
OK, let's do that then. I think that's going to be the hardest part.
What, writing the proposal?
No, finding what level of detail to go into. We could interview lots of people and try and find their overall views, or just pick a few and really do in-depth interviews with lots of questions.
I think you're right. But I think once we start, we'll see what's going to work best with this particular context.
OK.
Actually, there is one issue we could look into.
Really?
Yes, there's a particularly invasive wild plant species that grows around here. The college gardener said it's really hard to get rid of, and it makes growing other stuff difficult. I'm sure the gardeners on the allotments must have a problem with it. It's called creeping buttercup.
OK. What does it look like?
Well, there are two types actually. Bulbous buttercup, which is not a problem, and creeping buttercup, which is. To tell the two apart, you have to look at the flowers. They are identical with yellow petals, but the creeping buttercup doesn't have little leaves which point downwards just under the flower. They're called sepals, whilst the bulbous buttercup does.
OK.
And then it has polygonal-shaped leaves, rather than triangular-shaped leaves. So, if the leaf is divided into 5 sections rather than 3, then it's the creeping buttercup.
Right.
Both plants have a long stem, which grows out of a bulb, which is below ground. But only the creeping buttercup sends out new stems from the base, which creep along the ground. And these are called stolons. It's these things which make the plant such a problem.
Interesting.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to Section 4. You will hear an ecologist talking about how levels of biodiversity are calculated. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen and answer questions 31 to 40. Today, I'm going to be talking about the work of scientists who have the job of trying to calculate the level of biodiversity in rainforest areas, particularly in those places where only small areas of forest remain, surrounded by land which has been cleared for human exploitation, usually farming. It is well known that deforestation has a directly detrimental effect on many species of animals by destroying their habitats. However, in all of these ecosystems across the world, the wildlife that remains, even in pristine, untouched habitat, is under threat due to the effects of a process known as fragmentation, in which one large forest gets broken up into many smaller areas. This is very bad news for wildlife for many reasons. Firstly, small areas of rainforest don't have the same volume of vegetation as larger areas, and so provide less of the food, in particular fruit, needed to support complex ecosystems. This means it can support fewer plant-eating animals, and even fewer of the large animals which prey on them. Secondly, large animals need large territories, but they also need access to the territories of other populations of their own species. Unfortunately for many species of land animal, a piece of forest a kilometre away on the other side of a cattle farm may as well be on the other side of the world because it can't cross the farmland. This leads to a reduction in genetic diversity. Finally, another problem occurs when a large proportion of a rainforest habitat is bordering farmland. This is known as the edge effect. Farming practices change the quality of the habitat where it meets the forest, affecting the amount of light and shade and the temperature. Evidence of this can be found in poor tree growth and the absence of many animal species up to 100 meters in from the forest edge. Additionally, rainforest bordering farmland is more likely to attract hunting parties. Often, it is the biggest species that are absent in these small areas of rainforest. Large grazing mammals, which need a lot of land and vegetation, like elephants, or those at the top of their food chain, like lions. However, small animals are also vulnerable, especially if they rely on a very specific diet. Indeed, many of the most endangered species in the world are small animals that live a fragile existence. Assessing biodiversity starts with trying to work out how many species there are in an area, and estimating how many individuals there are of each species based on how many you find. The most basic method is to simply walk through a habitat and keep your eyes and ears open for the animals themselves or signs of them. This works for noisy animals such as monkeys, or birds with identifiable nests, or creatures with predictable hiding habits such as some snakes. Despite being simple, this technique does need careful consideration. Timing and location are everything. Trapping methods are useful for a wide range of different animals which are harder to spot. Small, ground-dwelling animals such as rodents and frogs can all be assessed with traps. For example, a temporary fence is put up, usually a long sheet of plastic. In trying to get around it, the animals fall into buckets dug into the ground. These have a layer of soil and leaves at the bottom, and the animals stay there until they can be checked, recorded, and released. Flying species such as bats and low-flying birds can be trapped using fine nets called mist nets. For those animals that are elusive and more difficult to trap, camera traps are great for determining the presence of that species, but are unlikely to be able to provide a good estimate of the number of individuals in a population. For those animals that can be caught, a microchip can be inserted under the skin so it can be identified if caught again. Calculating how many captures are actually recaptures provides an estimate of how many of that species there are in total. That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of the test.